Healthcare claims. We talk and hear so much about them. But how exactly do healthcare claims look like? What information goes in a healthcare claim when exchanged electronically in the form of X12 files? Here we'll discuss the most important X12 electronic transaction set that's used for exchanging healthcare claims. This is called the 837 X12 transaction set. I'm sure you have already seen this diagram in one of my previous videos where I've explained how all X12 transaction sets are exchanged in the healthcare workflow. So here today, I'm explaining this particular section of the workflow where after treatment, the healthcare claim is sent from the provider to the payer. I'll talk about all three types of 837 X12 files here. So if you want to understand this most important transaction set properly, stay tuned and watch this video till the end. Hi, I'm Manmeet Chadha. Welcome to Health Tech Decoded, where you get answers to all your queries related to healthcare technology. 837 files can be professional, institutional or dental. When they are submitted by practitioners, they are called as 837P. When they are submitted by institutions or facilities or hospitals, they are called as 837I. And when they are submitted for any dental services, they are called as 837D. Here I am discussing the segments side by side with each other so that you can easily understand how do they all differ. I have divided the 837 transaction set explanation into three chapters based on the loops. In X12 EDI files, a loop is a named group of related segments that serves a specific purpose and can repeat multiple times if required. In chapter 1, I am covering submitter details or 1000A loop, receiver or 1000B loop, then also 2000A, 2000B and 2000C loops. In chapter 2, I'll cover 2300 claim information loop and its segments. In chapter 3, I'll cover 2400 service lines loop and its segments. Here today, in this session, I'll cover chapter 1 and I'll cover the other two chapters in subsequent sessions. In this list of segments from chapter 1, some important element values are highlighted in red or green. Wherever required, I will talk in detail about those segment values. So the first segment is the interchange control header, that is the ISA segment. This segment carries the interchange information between two parties like the sender or the receiver IDs. The ISA 05 and ISA 07, these segments they carry an ID that is used in this file for designating the sender and the receiver elements. Here you see ZZ, this stands for a code called as the mutually defined code. These are the list of codes that you see on my screen. These codes can be used in segments ISA 05 and ISA 07. Here only for the purpose of demo I am using ZZ. Then ISA 06, it has the sender ID and ISA 08 carries the receiver ID. Then one more important item is ISA 15, which indicates the usage of this file. In this case, it is test data, hence I am using a T. You can also use I for information or P for production data in ISA 15. So as you see here, all the 837P, I and D, all these files use the same kind of ISA segment values. Then the functional group header segment, which is the GS segment, it indicates the beginning of a functional group in any EDI file. So GS08 in this segment is an important one. GS08 carries the version and the release code combination for the transactions in this file. So all these three file types here are using 5010 as a version, and then the base implementation guide value is also used after 5010. You see either X222, X223 or X224. So the base implementation guide value for 837 professional is X222. For 837 institutional, the implementation guide value is X223, and for dental, the implementation guide value is X224. Then the third section of GS08 is the fix or addendum that was made to the guides. So in this case, for 837 professional, A1 is the first fix or addendum made to the X222 guide. Similarly, for 837I institutional, the second fix made to the guide is represented by A2, and that is what is being used here. And for dental also, what we are using here is the second fix or addendum made to the guide, again A2 for X224 guide. Now let's talk about the transaction set header, the ST segment. ST segment, it marks the beginning of any transaction set. So ST01 tells us which transaction set it is. In this case, it's 837. ST02 is an ID for identifying that entire transaction set within that one STSE envelope. So here I've used the ID 0001. You can use 1234 or any ID that you want to identify your transaction set. ST03, it's same as GSO8, and that's the version of the X12 file. We've already talked about GSO8, so I'll not get into ST03 in detail. Then BHT segment, it's an important one, and it stands for beginning of hierarchical transactions. So whichever file carries a BHT segment, that helps us understand that the file will have HL segments, that is the hierarchical level segments. Now, BHT01 value, it indicates the hierarchical structure in any transaction set. So, for the 837 transaction sets, BHT01 is always 0019. It stands for information source, subscriber, and dependent. So, it tells us that 837 file will have hierarchical levels for source, subscriber, and dependent. Then the 1000A loop, it's for the submitter name and the contact information. So, NM1 segment here has all that information. So NM101, it has the identifier code 41, which stands for submitter. NM102 over here used is 2, which stands for a non-person entity. If I wanted, I could have also used NM102 equal to 1 also, which could have stood for a person who submitted the claim. Then NM108, it's 46. It stands for electronic transmitter ID because we are transmitting the transaction electronically. So its electronic transmitter ID number is in NM109. Then the contact information, it goes in the PER segment. So PER01 IC, it stands for information contact and it carries the contact number of the submitter. So PER03 tells us that we are talking about the telephone number of the submitter, and the contact information is in the form of a telephone number. Then 1000B is for the receiver name. NM101, in this case, it's 40, which stands for receiver. Then the 2000A loop, here the hierarchical levels begin. HL03, it indicates the context of all segments under this HL segment. In this case, HL03 is equal to 20. It stands for source, the source of the information in this file. Hence, the segments part of this loop, they'll carry the provider details because source of an 837 is always the billing provider. I will not go into the details of what all elements the HL segment comprises because I've already done a session on this. In the description here, I'm attaching the link of the detailed explanation of the HL segments that I have done earlier. 2010 AA loop under this hierarchical level is for billing provider name, address, and contact information. It comprises of segments for complete name and address details for the billing provider. So NM101 equal to 85, it stands for billing provider. NM102 here can be either 1 for person or 2 for a non-person entity. Then NM108 is equal to XX. It stands for NPI, National Provider Identifier of the provider. NPI value will go in NM109. Then the N3 and N4 segments are for provider address, city, state, zip, etc. Then the Ref EI segment. This is for providers' tax identification information. So if we have a Ref EI, the value against it will be the taxed ID of the provider. Then the 2010 AB loop, which is for the pay to provider name and address, it's used if the address for the payment is different from the billing provider details. Then this loop will be part of the 837 file. For all 837P, I, and D, this loop behaves the same way. 2000B subscriber HL loop now. It's the second hierarchical level in this transaction set and it's for the subscriber. The code used here is 22 in HLO3 and it stands for subscriber. So you'll notice that the 837 transaction set does not carry the hierarchical level for destination or receiver with the code 21. This is because the destination hierarchical level is required more in cases of inquiries like 270, 271 or 278 transaction sets, but it's not needed in the 837 transaction set. So the receiver information, which in this case is a payer, we'll already cover in another segment that we'll just talk about. Now coming back to the SBR segment, so in this loop it carries the subscriber information. SBR01 indicates the responsibility of the payer that is mentioned here, and the responsibility of the payer can be either primary or secondary or tertiary. So for example, if insured is insured with like multiple insurance companies, in that case one company is responsible for the payment primarily, another company may be responsible for the payment secondary. So that is why, depending on what's the responsibility of the payer, the SBR01 value is defined, either P, S or T. SBR02 value in this loop 2000B will be 18, which stands for self. Now SBR03 is also an important segment in 837 and it stands for insurance policy number of the subscriber. Now if the subscriber is the patient, then the PAT segment will be used in 2000B loop. If someone else is the patient, the PAT segment will not be used. 2010 BA loop under this hierarchical level is for the subscriber name, address and contact information. It comprises of segments for complete name, address, details of the subscriber. Then NM101 is IL here, and it indicates a subscriber or an insured. NM102 can either be 1 for person or 2 for a non-person entity. NM108 here can be either II or MI, which is for unique individual health IDs or member IDs respectively. Any NM108 value can be used here. The value of those IDs is defined in NM109. N3 carries address, N4 has city and state and zip information. Then even a DMG, which is the demographic information like birth date or gender information, can come here. Again, just like the PAT segment above, this DMG information is required when subscriber is the patient for the purpose of the claim. If subscriber is not the patient, then we don't require the DMG segment. 2010 BB loop, it's for the payer details, the payer name, address, and this segment is the one that I was referring to above. Like, it comprises of segments for complete name and address details of the payer. NM101 will have a value called as PR, which stands for payer. NM102 in this case will always be to non-person entity, because payer is always an insurance company, which is a non-person entity. NM108, it can have two values, PI or XV. PI will stand for the payer identification. Value of those IDs will be in NM109. And XV can stand for Medicare or Medicaid plan identification. So if it's a government funded insurance program, Medicare or Medicaid, in that case we'll use XV, and if it's a private insurance, we'll use PI in NM108. Then N3 and N4, they carry the details of the address, city, state, zip, etc. Now the 2000C dependent HL loop. This is the last possible hierarchical level of this transaction set, which is for dependents. Code 23 in HLO3, it stands for dependent. The patient information goes in the PAT segment. PAT01 is for the relationship code. When this value is 01, it's for spouse. When PAT01 is 19, it's for child. When PAT01 is G8, it's for any other relationship. Then the 2010 CA loop, just like we had the 2010 BA loop above for all subscriber information, here we have the 2010 CA loop for all the dependent information. So the patient name, address, contact info, etc., it all goes in the 2010 CA loop. This loop has segments for complete name and address details for the patient. NM101 equal to QC, it stands for patient. NM102 here will always be a 1 because patient or a dependent will always be a person entity. It cannot be a non-person entity. So that's why NM102 will always be 1. Segments N3 carry address and N4 has city, state, zip information. Then the DMG has a demographic information like the birth date and gender information. We'll quickly glance through 837P, I and D files here from here till here. These are the segments that we've already discussed in chapter 1. For the purpose of demo, I'm showing all these 3 files side by side now. If you see the 837P file towards the extreme left and the 837D file extreme right, both these files have 3 hierarchical levels in these demo files that we are seeing, because the patient and the subscriber is different in the 837D and the P demo files that we are looking at. But in the middle file, you'll see the 837I. The subscriber itself is the patient. That is why you see in this line number 15 here in the middle, you'll see that SBRO2 is equal to 18, which signifies that the subscriber itself is the patient, and you'll not see a third hierarchical level in this 837I demo file. Hope you got clarity on the loops 1000A, 1000B, 2000A, 2000B and 2000C for the 837 transaction set. If you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned for the next 2 sessions on loop 2300 and 2400 and the details.